The 1970s was a tumultuous time for America. It was a revolution after a decade of change. With the various civil rights movements of the 1960s having achieved a great deal of legislative success, they felt as if society still needed reformation. As a result, groups and organizations formed to challenge society. Many of them were perceived as radical. Groups like the Black Panthers were even perceived as a threat to society. Movements sprung for women's liberation and sexual liberation. Although there were great strides in the name of progress, some felt like it was not enough, like they were being left out. In late 1969, the LGBT community had just experienced a turning point. The Stonewall riots pushed the community to organize and demand their rights. Just like other movements at the time, the alleged conservative ways of the 1960s were being abandoned for new methods. The Mattachine Society dominated the gay rights scene of the 1950s and 60s. The Mattachine Society pleaded that the homosexuals should assimilate into society's established roles. But after Stonewall, the LGBT community sought direct confrontation with the roles that challenged their existence. Rather than conform, they demanded to be liberated. Although this new philosophy of liberation was considered radical, there was still disagreement within the new movements. Two organizations ended up forming almost immediately after Stonewall: the Gay Liberation Front and the Gay Activists Alliance. The Gay Liberation Front was a multi-issue organization. They believed that homophobia was one aspect of society that needed to be changed. They considered the whole picture, the intersection of race, class, gender, and the influences of capitalism. There were different chapters and caucuses that focused on specific groups, such as the Drag Queens Caucus led by Silvia Rivera. However, many activists of the time thought the group lacked focus, attention, and method. Thus, many fled to the Gay Activist Alliance. The GAA single-issue method allowed for easier organization and mobilization. However, many felt that it came at the cost of neglecting important intersections like race and gender. Toby Murata states the GAA was a single-issue, politically neutral organization whose goal would be to secure basic human rights, dignity, and freedom for all gay people. Despite its critics, it was able to organize protests against gay bar raids and form political strategies such as the ZAP. ZAPs were organized events that would call attention to gay rights and force the ZAPed political group in question to take a stance on gay rights. Examples of this would be occupying the ABC building for better gay representation, or following politicians to tapings of shows and rushing to the stage. The first Pride Parade was held in 1970 and was initially called Christopher Street Liberation Day. The event was organized by Craig Rodwell and intended to be a commemoration of the Stonewall riots. These acts of solidarity and celebrations of queerness spread around the country. San Francisco was once a haven for the Summer of Love in 1967. The intersection of Haight and Ashbury was a hotspot for hippies and free love. This attracted many young progressives and sexual revolutionaries. However, around the 1970s, Haight and Ashbury became a haven instead for drugs and crime. This prompted many queer people to instead move to the Castro Street. LGBT culture in San Francisco was vast. The 70s and LGBT activism were defined by the queer community discovering itself. They came together to form organizations, communities, stores, bookshops, and even churches. The Castro Street would become one of the defining cultural aspects of the LGBT community. Although the community was diverse, one of the most famous expressions of gay liberation was the Castro clone subculture. It was mostly gay men who would dress in traditionally masculine and rough clothing. Erotic artist Tom of Finland wanted to celebrate gay sexuality and eroticism through subcultures like leather. The Village People, a famous disco band comprised of mostly gay men, also imitated the Castro clone style. There were several new political goals of the movements, some of which included repealing sodomy laws, decriminalizing homosexuality, repealing what they called anti-cross-dressing laws, ending employment discrimination, and ending harassment by police of LGBT spaces. These political goals stressed the community's desire for liberation. They wanted to be able to be out and proud and not face legal punishment. It should be noted that employment discrimination is still legal in many places in the United States. Queer sex and relationships were not legalized completely in the US until 2003, and is still illegal in many countries around the world. Openly LGBT people began running for public office, and even landed some victories. Kathy Kosachenko was the first openly gay person elected to a public office in the United States. She served on the Ann Arbor City Council in Michigan. Although many queer activists shared the same goals, many did not. And even if the goals were similar, their ways of implementing these goals varied. Some women felt that the Gay Liberation Front and the Gay Activists Alliance did not adequately address women's issues. Lesbian feminists were also dissatisfied with how feminist circles, like the National Organization for Women, treated queer women. They would end up organizing a high-profile protest at the Second Congress to unite women, with the goal of having lesbian issues included in feminist circles. Another break occurred in the LGBT community. Trans people felt excluded from the movement. Many trans people felt that the gay liberation movement was becoming a white and middle-class club, as Sylvia Rivera called it. A group called Lesbian Feminist Liberation opposed a drag queen performance at the 1973 Pride March in New York, and Sylvia Rivera took to the stage to proclaim her concerns.
Y'all better quiet down. I have been beaten. I have had my nose broken. I have been thrown in jail. I have lost my job. I have lost my apartment for gay liberation. And you all treat me this way? What the fuck's wrong with you all? Think about that. The people that are trying to do something for all of us and not men and women that belong to a white middle class, white club. And that's what you all belong to. Revolution now!
Trans activists often clash with trans-exclusionary radical feminists, especially in the LGBT community. Despite this, trans people did fight for some incredible historical feats. Sweden became the first country in the world to allow trans people to change their gender marker to match their gender identity. Reed Erickson, a wealthy transman philanthropist, would use his resources to donate to many transgender causes. He helped fund trans-related research at Johns Hopkins, the organization that is now known as the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, pamphlets, articles, and films. Overall, the culture in America toward LGBT+ people was changing. Even if the public did not approve of queer people, they were gaining awareness of queer people's existence. Movies that had once seen LGBT people as predators in the shadows now showed them in a sympathetic light. By no means was the LGBT representation of the 1970s perfect, but it existed less to demonize queer people, and more to portray them as everyday people. Despite the many disagreements in the community, there was a strong sense of achievement among each of its members. The community was enjoying what the new decade brought, but every new movement that appears in the culture has a pushback. Thanks for watching. Sorry I have to talk about TERFs, but they existed, and played a part in history, unfortunately. This channel is not one to mention harmful ideas and leave them hanging, because that's irresponsible, so I'm going to stress that this channel includes trans people as a positive and integral part of queer history. Anti-trans sentiment is not to be tolerated. Hi there. I'm the creator of ASM Are They Gay and pansexual political parties. Today, I'm here to thank my patrons. I'm here to thank these people. And also, these people. And now, I'd like to thank my supreme gay patrons, including Alexina, Charlotte, Harry Gagonis, Isabel Blackwood, Leon Weigel, Marie, Megalomaniac64, Queer Coded, and Rosalind Wells. If you'd like to support my Patreon, please click the link in the description. Follow my Twitter, my Instagram, and my Tumblr. Follow my Twitter at @AreTheyGay, Tumblr, aretheygayvideos.tumblr.com, and my Instagram, _aretheygay_. To make a one-time contribution, please consider buying my merch at my Teespring store, link in the description.